half hour or so to talk to some leading experts right here in Washington, learn from them what's been working, what's been challenging. Just like anywhere else, it's not all roses. And so we're gonna bring them up. We're gonna kind of do a little round table. So without further ado, do our 4 experts want to come join me on stage? Give them a round of applause. Come on up. The water is warm. The powerhouse is so real with this crew, I can't even deal with it. Okay. So I thought we'd just start, I could intro you, but I think it's better for you to intro yourself. And then, give us a little about you, and then I might have a little follow-up question. But why don't we start with Valerie? Valerie, tell us about you.
Hazel, Valerie Segrest Seedsta, Ecology. Good day, my name is Valerie Segrest, and I'm a member of the Muckleshoot tribe, located just south of here at the base of the beautiful Mount Rainier, or Tahoma, as we call it. I'm the CEO and founder of Tahoma Peak Solutions. We're a Native women-owned firm that focuses on food strategies and food sovereignty initiatives and community engagement and culturally relevant data and research. So my background is in nutrition and food systems management.
And a big part of what you do is kind of bringing indigenous ways forward and helping kind of tell us about that, the network, and why that matters.
Well, as a nutritionist, I know that I'm excited about science and carbs and proteins and minerals. Like I can geek out on all that stuff.
You can geek out on carbs? I guess I do.
That's why we study nutrition, Phil. But for us, our foodways are more than just nourishment. They're ceremonies, they're relationships, they're teachings, teachers. We think of food as more than just resources and commodities to be extracted from the land. And so for me, that's really about like a deeper sense of nourishment and connection through relationships. And for the people that I serve and am beholden to, that is also a healing journey, because it has been something that has been intentionally severed, those indigenous foodways and practices from our way of life. And so returning to that and reclaiming that is actually part of a really strong and powerful healing journey that I don't think applies to just us, but like everybody globally. So, as my teachers often say, when you stop sort of fractionating food in that way and start developing a deeper relationship of honor and the honorable harvest and all those things, we can see it in a different way and value it in a different way. And that's important, especially for the concept of this.
Yeah, I think when people have such a closer relationship with food, they value it more, period. And if there's ways that you can bridge those relationships, and it's not just an afterthought or a way to fuel your body on the way to work, it really changes people's perspective. It's beautiful. Thank you. Liz, tell us about you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Liz Fikejs, Seattle Public Utilities, department within the city of Seattle. And I just want to say for a second here, pause, and I'm so glad ReFED is here in Seattle this year. It's exciting to see so many people, and I really hope that everyone's enjoying this beautiful place. So I work on food waste prevention in the commercial sector, as well as food rescue. And I'm also a representative for the Pacific Coast Food Waste Commitment for the city, and sit on the U.S. Food Waste Pact Advisory Council. I think I got that title right.
I love when you're such a badass you forget your own accolades. It's amazing. We also want to thank you. You are a big part of putting this on and kind of integrating Seattle and everything that we have here. So thank you, Liz. So, question for you, and I don't know this, you being a chef here and someone who I would consider is involved in food waste. What does diversion look like right now in Seattle?
Yeah, so diversion is definitely part of the big picture. Seattle is known for its composting. We banned food waste from garbage in 2015, but there was a long lead up to that. So in the early 2000s, we started by helping build the ethic and the knowledge that food waste does not belong in the garbage. We started with our single-family customers, providing curbside carts. They already had them for yard waste. Now they could add food waste. But that's only part of the picture, right? So in 2009, that was accessible. A few years later, we added the multifamily sector. So anyone living in an apartment building had the convenience of putting their food waste in a cart, and that food waste went to compost. Then in 2015, it became universal. So now all Seattle businesses, it did not matter what size, small or large, had to divert their food waste out of the garbage. But all that said, and there was a lot of outreach, a lot of education, reinforcing, certainly the policies. But today, we still have about 20% of our garbage being food waste. So diversion, we can't compost our way out of this, right? I mean, imagine if those dumplings that you and John re-prepared yesterday had just gone to compost.
Yeah.
That's good food.
Yeah.
We know some of that food just needs to be repurposed and enjoyed. And we know some of that food, when it's in abundance, needs to be redistributed and provided to those who don't have enough access to that food. So prevention and food rescue, we're doubling down on that as well.
So that's where your focus is, just before it even has a chance to get to the bin.
Right.
And where is that? Is that education? Is that like what part is it specifically?
Yeah, so it's across all sectors.
Yeah.
Cheryl Anais, who's out here, who spoke earlier this morning, focuses on the consumers and all of us are consumers. All that we can do at home, the decisions we make when we're buying food. It's also about different practices in businesses. Everyone's seeing how Hyatt is managing buffets and the portion size, the serving vessels, all of that plays a big factor. So that's on the business side. There's an intersection to be had between the two. And then food rescue, boy, it's learning from hunger relief organizations and grocers to understand, and other businesses to understand where are the bottlenecks, where are the challenges, and how can SBU figure out our most potent role across all of those sectors to help and to learn.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to talk about partnership. Thank you. Kelly, tell us about you. Yeah, we've got a couple mics,
Hi there, my name is Kelly Goodejohn, and I have the privilege of serving as Starbucks Chief Social Impact Officer. I've been with the company just over 19 years, and some of the work that my team leads, and shout out to my team, if you could raise your hands, they're right there. This is the wonderful food rescue team. But some of the things that my team do include food rescue and our food share program, as well as work of the Starbucks Foundation, the way we can invest in local nonprofits.
How long have we been doing that?
Food share, or
all of it.
All of it. So since the beginning, I would say since 1971, we have had a mission of doing good and contributing positively in the community. I think many of you have had the experience to visit Pike Place Market, and that's the home of our first Starbucks. We're really proud to call Seattle our hometown. And while we have, in my opinion, the world's best coffee, we also have a higher mission to be that hub of connection and create a sense of belonging and community. And when we think about community, in this context, something I'm really proud of is the way that we've approached food rescue and food donation in particular. It was actually an idea that came from our partners. That's what we call our employees. Many, many years ago, and they said, we don't like the idea of throwing away unsold food at the end of the night. And to your point, there's a responsibility that we have, and there's some action that we can take. And so through some trial and error, we explored what could we do. We have 10,000 coffee houses across the United States. And we started out piloting. We took the innovation of Seattle and the Pacific Northwest culture and said, how do we think differently about this problem? And over time, we developed a food rescue program that now spans across 10,000 of our stores that happens each and every night. And the way we do that is by tapping into our strength, which is logistics. So each night, as delivery drivers are bringing milk and supplies to our coffee houses, they also pick up a bag that our baristas have put together that's in the refrigeration section. They collect that along their routes into refrigerated trucks, bring it to one of the 45 food bank networks that we partner with. The food bank partner networks get it out to over 800 smaller pantries throughout local communities. And again, this happens every single night to get that food from the refrigerator of our store into the hands of those who need it. And to date, I'm proud to say that we've been able to divert over 80 million pounds of food from landfill, and we've been able to provide 67 million meals.
That's amazing.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
This is a differentiator that we're really proud of. Because we get a tax benefit, we have committed to reinvesting 100% of that tax benefit. So it pays for the program, the logistics, the transportation, all that. But what I'm really proud of is we're able to provide food share capacity grants to nonprofits so that they can do the work. They have the capacity they need to reach more people in their communities. And to date, over $90 million has been reinvested in hunger relief efforts.
Give it up for that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's a choice. I mean, I think, as a big corporation, it is a choice. And you guys invested, you took a risk, and it paid off in dividends. And what advice, I mean, just from a Starbucks standpoint, whether it's a small coffee chain or a mom and pop shop to a giant retailer, who have these choices and can lean in, what advice would you give just now that you've been on this journey?
Yep, so for us, we started out with a handful of coffee houses. The idea of trying to create something that could span to 10,000 locations was daunting. And when we realized we had this superpower of a logistics supply chain, it was a game changer. Instantly, we knew we could do something differently, tap into a strength and an existing service we had, which has had also enormous environmental benefits as a result. So I would say for companies, take one step, look at what you're able to do, look at your superpowers and lean into that, and don't give up. We learn from others. We were at the table with Liz many years ago, learning from others and having the conversation of what can we do better? How can we innovate? And we're not perfect. We continue to learn and evolve with our program.
I think we all see the problem so big sometimes, and I was talking to another gentleman who is a food rescuer out of Providence, and he started his company, tried to kind of take on the full supply chain, and quickly realized that wasn't his strength to do all piece of it. His piece was to rescue the food and then find other partners. And my strength is storytelling and content creation. And so really, really being specific and then finding a partner, which we're going to talk about, makes a ton of sense. Thank you, Kelly. My buddy Jade.
Hey, pal. Good morning. And how about for Chef Joel? Isn't he a great talk about storytelling? What a good MC. Thanks again to Liz and the crew. I really think Seattle is an excellent location, especially as we center on all the progress we've made in food waste reduction. It does feel like a milestone in many ways, so I don't know. I'm not going to take time to do shout-outs. I'm so sorry. Jade, Monroe, her food center lead at the Department of Ecology, so if you think the state level work here in Washington State, and I am very excited to be here today. I am also with a shout out to my team. One more shout out. There's a lot of really cool people working on organics management law implementation here in the state as well, including King County and many people here, Pierce County. And so in addition to me representing a lot of the information we'll share, there's many people in this room working on it as well. So if you want to learn more, there's not just me, of course, and there's a lot of new legislation in this state to talk about. And I'm sure you'll get to a question in a second, but in Washington State, just to highlight where we're at with organics management law implementation and food waste reduction, In 2019, we aligned with the international and national goals to reduce 50% by 2030, and by that way, we got to planning, and that's how I really met Liz and learned a ton. I really call Liz a mentor in a lot of ways, and we partnered up with businesses like Starbucks and other food businesses that are already doing the work, and we learned from nonprofits and across the food system on what the barriers and opportunities were, and we drafted the Use Food Well Washington plan. And I'm super honored to share that that is still a fulcrum document to this day, and many of you have approached me on how you can get that in your jurisdictions. And so in addition to that, we have now the campaign, which are some of the recommendations, and of course the center that I'm here representing, which is a part of the plan, and of course the partnership we have with you and Safeway with the Use Food Well campaign, and it all comes back to building on this work. And so I'm super excited to be here today, but I'm also here to tell you we have a lot of work left to do. Washington still generates 1.2 million tons of food waste annually. And I'm seeing we have more people in here now, so I want to ask you, guess how much of that is edible food going into the landfill?
Half.
Oh, well, no more guessing. It's correct. So 500,000 tons. 500,000 tons of that is edible food going into the landfill, and you can stop laughing now because that sucks. And on top of that, we're in a worse position with food security than we were in the pandemic, because food supply is down and demand is even higher than it was during the pandemic impacts. And so what I'm here to tell you today is, as much as we have progress and a lot to celebrate, and that needs to be wind in our sails, and our partnerships absolutely matter, and what Starbucks and what Liz and all of the pioneers in this room are doing matters, there's a critical effort afoot, and that's why messengers like Chef Joel and the work that our municipalities and how it's ground truth with our hunger relief organizations, it's almost like the grit needs to continue to happen. So anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you for having
I
me.
totally agree, and our partnership has been unbelievable. So just to kind of dial deep into it, the way it shows up is, let's say you're grocery shopping at a Safeway, and there is chicken that's going to go on sale, maybe it's going to go bad. There will be a QR code right by the chicken that says, hey, here's how you make the most of this chicken. And maybe chicken wasn't on the menu for that person that day. So they'll scan it, a video will come up of me or one of the 20 chefs that we work with, and it's real quick, and it's like 30 seconds, and it's meant to be inspirational. Think like social media vibes, very fun, and hopefully they grab it and they buy other things in the store. So Safeway wins, they're able to move that product. Consumer wins, they're going to get a marked down product and they just learned something new. Department of Ecology wins, we just educated the consumer in a really strong way. So this is just an example of how we've partnered. It's just the beginning, but we've seen unbelievable signal. And you want to talk a little bit about some of the wins?
No, I love that. And I think the big win that you just highlighted is that triple bottom line framework. Raise your hand. I'm sorry if I get pedantic here, but who's aware of the triple bottom line framework? It's the idea of there's an economic, yeah, I see a lot of hands. Lights are bright, but I see a lot of hands. The idea is there's an environmental, there's a social, and there's an economic value for the work we're doing on food waste reduction. Ideally, it doesn't become food waste to begin with, and that's why it's Use Food Well here in Washington State. We designed that. Liz at the table, of course, and a lot of other really important partners go, how do we center on making sure food is just the valuable center of our culture to begin with? I really appreciate how you level set our entire conversation. It's cultural, commodity second, then let's get there. But the tricky part is the population centering on the economic message first. After we do all the research, 90% of the folks in Washington State go, I'm motivated by the economic message. 20% go, the climate message is motivating. Yikes. So we're sitting there with that $3,000 message, we're sitting there with Safeway, Chef Joel, and we're going, you can save money, we can move this food, it doesn't hit the landfill, and it's feeling really successful. And now we're building that research, and this is really exciting developments with how we're implementing the organics management law and bringing that research for every dollar a business spends, they can get that return of 7. And we're really trying to build off of all the really amazing leadership of like Seattle Public Utilities, King County, on how do we get that business messenger, very similar to how Chef Joel, you've been a really great messenger to the consumer and Safeway, and how do we also get that food business to ride along with us and go ahead and prevent that food waste with us.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting.
Totally. Well, we kind of spent the first half of this talking about what we've done here with our amazing organizations and approaches. I want to talk about how other people can implement it. You know, I met people from all over the country yesterday. I know we are representing so many different places all over the world, really. So it's great, these are awesome, but how can these frameworks carry forward? And so I want to start with partnership. I feel like that was the theme, so I'm just going to start there. And maybe I'll pick on Liz. Hi, Liz. Do you want to talk about kind of your approach to partnership and how others can kind of do the same?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is learning. So at Seattle Public Utilities, we know what we know, but we certainly didn't know, okay, what are the challenges that grocery store employees are encountering when they donate surplus food? What are the challenges that the hunger relief organizations are encountering at the dock when they're picking up the food? And so it was amazing to be able to partner with large chains like Safeway, to PCC community markets, to Town and Country, to learn on the ground what are those challenges.
Yeah.
And then to test them, right? So to take small steps, be able to go into the stores, identify, these are the communication gaps. Actually, we've filled those communication gaps when it comes to recycling by standardizing practices, by having everyone understand what that bin means. Oh, there's the sign. Here's the employee training, and apply those to food rescue. But none of this can be done in a silo, so hearing from employees directly, hearing from the hunger relief organizations to sort of better refine what works for them as well. And then to be able to take these micro partnerships and put them out so that they can be replicated. So now folks can go to the website that we have on Food Rescue and download and customize employee training and signage. So it's amplifying those partnerships out, but continually learning and checking back in.
I love that. Valerie, how about from your perspective? How do you partner?
Well, I think when we think about Indigenous foodways, we're often thinking about the past, and that we're some sort of, like, we're locked in history. And I think that's kind of by design in our American education system, just not really speaking about a Native person in any time past, the 1900s. And so the reality is, like, okay, so for thousands of years, Indigenous foodways have really been rooted in circularity and reciprocity, and like I spoke to, it's about relationships and teachings and ceremonies, and those things look like, the first salmon ceremony. I'm thinking about it because we all just sort of are celebrating this right now. When that first salmon is harvested from the river, all the bones, are returned back to the waters, because we're taught that those bones regenerate and they go back and tell all the other salmon to come home, because these are good people and they're generous and they're good hosts and they take care of us. Those same practices go to harvesting shellfish like oysters and clams, where we return clam shells, we return the shells to the water. Which turns out that it increases calcium and creates habitat for krill and balances the pH of the waters. Thank you, science, for catching up to cultural teachings. And also, when we hunt, we leave the entrails, because we know that there are animals and beings out there that, really covet those things and need them, and we close that circle of life. And so, for me, in my, in innovating and thinking about like a blueprint for the future, we really have to think about the first stewards of this land and what their knowledge base is around, because that's what we prioritize. It's like not just us celebrating food and honoring food, but future generations having that ability too. So thinking about the future, constantly taking the best of what's available to us at the time and innovating. Like, our ancestors have always been really innovative. And so for us right now, that looks like also lifting up Native food producers And this started actually with the City of Seattle's Food Equity Fund grant. They helped us fund a research project where we looked at all of the Native-owned food businesses in Washington State. Quickly got to over 20. There's lots of seafood products here, if you don't know, harvested by Native people. And then Oregon State University has also supported us in expanding that through the regional food business centers funding pushed out by the USDA a few years ago. So we now have a database of over 50 Native food producers representing Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Colorado, and Wyoming. And we hope to expand to anywhere, but hopefully Alaska and California next, and the Southwest. But it's called Native Grown and Gathered. And after talking to all of these food producers, their values were all the same. This concept of food waste, which is non-existent really in our communities, because we're thinking about this, the giving back and the reciprocity of our food system and only taking what we need at the time, like the honorable harvest. You make it look like you are never there, and because you're also saving some for future generations. All these concerns and needs of Native food producers were all the same.
Yeah.
It's all values-based, and so anyways, we're really excited about lifting them up and eating all their food, because that's the best part too. And so we're hosting our first Native Food Expo. It's at Bell Harbor, October 1st through the 3rd, and we'll have 50 Native food producers there. You should all come.
I was about to say, how do I get a ticket? You're in front of all my friends here, so yeah.
I'm really nervous about it, but I'm also really excited. We put on these things, but not to this scale. So, and everybody's really excited about coming and just tabling and sharing what they know. And then we'll also have an additional conference for Native food entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about getting into the business, so they can come and network and see what it looks like, and then get some hands-on training. So we recognize that these values also need to be lifted up into this economy, because for us it's always been, it's a hard value to put on our food to sell it when it's something that we hold so dear. This is the moon of the blackberry is actually right now in our Coast Salish 13 moons system. And we've organized our life around harvesting blackberry at this time for thousands of years, and that's important. So how do you put a price on that and join this economy? But I think when we are in community with one another, that's what's so refreshing about being here with all of you today. It's a reminder that we're not doing this alone. We can stand in solidarity and build really strong acts and movements and resistance and resilience, and draw from those teachings. And so we want to keep bringing those people together and let them know that there is a way to do this and to be grounded in business and values at the same time. So.
Damn. That was amazing.
I'm really excited about it. And you can
Blown away. I have goosebumps. That was incredible. And you talked about how this collaborative that you created on all these unbelievable Indigenous people, and you're starting to spread across the country. I want to talk about scale. And I'm going to kill you right now. Because scaling, you said 10,000 stores. That's true scale. And so I'd like anyone to comment, but I'm pointing at Kelly right now. How do you scale? How partnering, great, but how do you scale? What is the advice there?
I think partnerships is key to how we were able to scale. And maybe I'll start inward. It started with a partnership even with our food development team, right? To ensure that all of the food, our menu items, could be able to be donated, right? That they had a second purpose to them built into the design of the product. Then it took partnering with our transportation company, our logistics company. This was a new thing for us to ask them to do. They had never done something like this before. They weren't used to delivering crates and crates of food to food banks. That wasn't part of their business model. So we had to partner there and create that model. And then, of course, the hunger relief organizations, ensuring that the system of receiving food each day could get back out into the communities very, very quickly. And so in the Seattle area, we partner with Northwest Harvest, who's a great leading food hunger agency. And they weren't used to receiving food on a daily basis and then, turning that around. And so we had to innovate with them, and we had to partner with them and work through some of the kinks. But that's an example of what we had to do multiple times throughout the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And now as we look at how do we extend food rescue in markets, countries where we're not doing that today, where there may be barriers or limitations, how do we partner with others? The Global Food Banking Network, World Food Program, et cetera. How can we expand the learnings here and learn from others to have a greater impact around the world?
Yeah, so much of this is just listening, honestly. And whether it's listening to our ancestors or indigenous people, or listening to people who have figured it out, or other countries, yeah, that's a fast way to scale it. They've already figured out a lot. And sometimes it's just swallowing what you think and hearing what other people have done. So, and by the way, I appreciate everyone's open-mindedness to hear about Seattle and Washington and here. So you guys have already been doing that. I want to end with just a quick 1 minute from each of you. Maybe we'll start with Jade. Where are we headed? What's your little outlook here?
Cool, thanks, partner, Chef Joel. Where are we heading? 1 minute. I'm a recovering speech and debate nerd, and even this feels a little bit of a tall order. But to maybe reset around partnerships, and I really like how you, I'm gonna do the thing where I pivot and go back to what you were doing a little bit, and you were asking, how do we take this home a bit? Because it's not lost on me. I grew up in South Dakota. In fact, I grew up with a single mom on a farm in South Dakota, and my graduating class was 13 people. So it's not lost on me on how far some of this work in Washington might feel from some of you here today, considering the national approach to this conference, or maybe international approach. And what I really want to encourage, and where we found success in Washington State, maybe it's not where we're heading completely to solving the food waste issue or making sure everyone's fed, because that feels really far and does not feel like a SMART goal to me right now. What is tangible though, and what's been successful for Washington has been our partnership so far. And amongst the people in this room, I really think Food Waste Prevention Week has also been something that has catalyzed food waste prevention communication. It's almost given us a standard operating procedure for the lingo of the people in this room, best practice. And it's given us a way to level set the conversation towards prevention. So it's not just the compost pile in the backyard. It's, if I measure this, I might be able to actually increase the quality of my donations. I might actually save money. There's a conversation happening now, and I'm really proud to share that Washington has had the most partners with Food Waste Prevention Week the last 2 years in a row, and that's been strategic because we've leveraged our Use Food Well campaign, our partnerships, and making sure we have a culture-centered message. We have Seattle Public Utilities. They have already done a ton of work. We really don't want to duplicate that. We want to leverage it. You said potency earlier. That's a patented Liz Fikejs word, and we want to find our potent lane, and mine at the state level with my team is to make sure we're amplifying. And so I really think Food Waste Prevention Week, all of you have access to that. It is usually in April, and I really want to encourage you to leverage that amplification moment. And I think the more we can have a conversation together, it is a movement, and I think we can say something together in concert. So I'll just say that.
Cool, love it. Kelly?
Great. I'll just say, we have such appreciation for the city of Seattle and the leadership position that Seattle has taken in the space. As we think about our business, we're in 10,000 communities. There's 10,000 potential different policies and regulations out there. And so we just commend Seattle, and the higher the bar that Seattle has, that will influence what we do, because we need to develop a program that works across the highest standard. So as we think about where we're going, as policy and regulation continues to get higher, we need to exceed that, and we want to exceed that. So the future is bright, in my opinion, as we think about more we can do, operate more effectively, efficiently, and have higher impact to the planet.
Okay. I think where we're going is deeper collaboration. I see it in the conference. I see it in the work that we're all doing. It can be a word that's overused, and when we talk about scale, because we keep wanting to get to scale, I also think about how do we do that in the most meaningful way in each of our communities? How do we keep the beginner mindset? How do we keep iterating? So I think about all the pilots that we do, and we go into a pilot and we come out of it and we may have different partners with a solution we never thought we were going to test.
Totally.
So I guess I would encourage all of us, and yes, Seattle has this reputation. We have so much to learn from all of you across public, private, nonprofit sectors, and I think there's a humbleness in this collective community to keep learning, and that's how we have to do it.
Thank you. Valerie.
So never before in human history have we been this far removed from the source of our food. And I often, as a nutritionist, my elders would say, like, how do we help people return to a traditional foods diet when our usual and custom harvesting grounds are now Safeway and Albertsons and QFC, right? And so I'm often reminding folks that there are principles to our ancestral diets that are as applicable today as they were generations ago. And those are things like our foods are local foods, they're maybe regional foods too, they're seasonal, they're, thinking about the 13 moons, it's just like really on my mind right now, the 13 moons that we've shared globally as a collective. Globally, our ancestors have organized their lives around these 13 lunar moons. What moon is it now? Focus on that. That's the food with the vitality, getting connected to where our food is at and where we should be moving through the land, what we should be doing. That reclamation of being connected to the source of our food will also help us think about honoring it, all the way from river to table. And that our original stewards of this land have these viable blueprints that can help inform and shape a food system that still feeds future generations, because what we do, we want them to experience as well. And so I would encourage everybody to think about that, think about your ancestors, like what would they recognize as food and how would they be holding that up, and how do we hold those conversations with people through story and the social capital that's like invested there, that they have perfected and refined recipes and passed those down through time, and it's our responsibility to hold them, caretake for them, and pass them on to the future generations. And that means that we need the future. In my community, we need the future to know what salmon tastes like. We need them to know, and so. I encourage you all to do the same, to reclaim those ancestral traditions, because they're powerful and they have so many deep, meaningful teachings. And working with kids, I'll tell you, that's what they actually care about. Like, they don't care that blueberries have antioxidants in them. They want to hear the story about how blueberry became medicine for the people. So they're hungry for that, and I think we are also all hungry for something else than what nutrition offers. So.
Yeah, I think everyone in this room is hungry, and I think in the sense of, I think that food waste is kind of like a slap, right? It's like, wow, we waste that much food. Oh my, and immediately as a human, I think we're like, how do we fix it? I want to run, I want to sprint after this. And what I'm taking away from this session is, actually, you can sprint and you might not get too far, it's like that saying, or you can slow down and learn from the past and our ancestors, partner, pilot, learn, listen, and if maybe we just kind of take a step back from feeling like our heads are on fire, we might get farther. So thank you to these 4 amazing leaders, and again, it just makes me double down and make such a proud Seattleite and Washington Stater, and thank you all for being open and listening. Let's give them a round of applause.